PSAs. When Saturday morning cartoons were the big thing, there was always enough time to break from saving the planet, fighting Dr. Robotnik, or killing terrorists to give kids some great life advice. 30 seconds worth to be exact. And today we're revisiting these PSAs to see how the advice holds up. These are the best and worst cartoon PSA advice. And now you know, and knowing what the video is about is half the battle. So let's begin with G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Stranger danger. Wild Bill comes to the rescue when this young boy is almost kidnapped by this half-hearted Riddler cosplayer. We'll call him the Diddler, by saying his mother had an accident.
Well, just don't do what a stranger says. Check it out with an adult you know. Remember, a stranger
can mean danger. Now I know.
Aside from how weird it was that Bill showed up so quickly, this is actually great advice. Kidnappers will get their hands on victims any way they can. That said, we are a bit worried about this kid regardless because his neck seems to be involuntarily twitching. Knowing is half the battle, but it looks like the second half might involve seeing a doctor. Tread carefully. Apparently the child standing on the edge of a narrow cliff wasn't the concern here. It was the danger of drowning afterwards.
Cool! Use your head, don't lose it! Open and close your legs like a scissor!
It's cool that Torpedo teaches the little guy how to tread water, but it probably would have been better to rescue the kid instead of using it as an impromptu swimming lesson.
Never play around water alone.
Now I know.
So we'll say poor timing. They see me rolling.
Remember, running only makes the fire worse. If your clothes catch fire, wrap yourself in a rug or blanket.
Okay, stop, drop, and roll is good advice, sure. But you know what else is good advice? Not letting kids camp in the woods by themselves. Still, good advice. Remember kids, blind people aren't useless.
Blind does not mean you cannot see how to solve problems.
This is our first obvious piece of advice.
Mark has learned to use his other senses better. Remember, having a handicap
doesn't mean you're helpless.
If you're blind, then use your other senses. Like, yeah, of course the blind kid's gonna be hearing things.
Now we know.
This isn't a Helen Keller situation. You're on thin ice, pal. When this idiot runs out onto a frozen lake, he learns just because lakes are frozen doesn't mean the ice is thick enough to support your weight.
Snow job!
find something that'll reach.
This is good advice, actually. Get a long object to fish your buddy out. But, what was this guy's name?
Snow job!
What is a snow job? You know what? Never mind. Don't steal in broad daylight. The kinds of people who would steal a bike in broad daylight are probably not the type to be worried about what authority figures feel about it.
Remember, taking something that isn't yours just isn't right.
Now I know.
So, duh, stealing is wrong, but if you're gonna insist that you'll be punished if caught, shouldn't you and your parrot, I don't know, punish the guy? Now these kids are just gonna think they can say, "Now we know," to avoid any criminal penalties in the future. Try harder, damn it. Here, Scarlett encourages this little girl, trapped in the body of a 40-year-old bank teller with kids and a mortgage, to not give up on her quest to learn how to jet ski.
Can you ride a bike? Well, sure I can. But could you at first? No, I had to practice for weeks.
And I guess, yeah, that's good advice, but seriously, that cannot be a child, right? Shockingly good advice. Okay, let's start with the fact that these kids might have the lowest IQ yet for this plan.
Hey, let's jump our bikes over it.
When these two kids come up with the genius idea to jump their bikes over a fallen power line,
Are you stupid or something?
Roadblock is quick to tell them, "Hey, maybe don't do that, dumbass."
Remember, never play around electrical wires or you could be playing with fire.
While that is a good piece of advice on its own, we have to give this a resounding obvious advice rating. Like, is this real? Do kids do this?
We didn't think it was dangerous.
What other advice do these kids need? Hey, there's a toaster. Let's go drop it in the bathtub. He blocked this road too late. When a kid unwittingly gives his address to a stranger who says he's won a prize, he's lucky that Roadblock shows up just in time to chase him off.
Remember, never tell anyone you're home alone and never give anyone your address.
But let's be real, he wasn't fast enough. Jeffrey Dahmer already got your address. Good advice, but you're too late. This kid will be featured on a Netflix true crime docuseries soon. Suck at sports? Get glasses. Remember kids, if you suck at baseball, you probably just need glasses.
You don't see the real problem.
Ripcord.
Having your eyes tested may clear things up.
Wait, that's a bit confusing. Not because it couldn't be true, but how are they just now realizing this guy needs glasses?
How can you miss that?
That kid's like 6 feet tall. cold open.
Remember, never get in anything that could close up and trap you.
Like an old trunk or an abandoned refrigerator. Now we know.
Okay, believe it or not, this one was actually pretty relevant advice at one time. There were a surprising amount of kids dying by playing in refrigerators they couldn't get out of due to the magnetic seals. In other words, trapping yourself in a fridge could kill you, making this good advice. Crappy treehouse. Today's G.I. Joe lesson is that this kid sucks at building treehouses.
Remember, anything worth doing is worth planning. If you don't plan,
You're out on a limb.
Like, what is that? And this is actually really good advice. If kids want to build a treehouse, great, but they'll need to have the proper instructions, materials, and the guidance of an adult who knows what they're doing. We recommend Hank Hill.
Because shop is bigger than any classroom or garage or stupid policy that makes tools illegal. It's in our hearts.
Pitbull versus child.
Hi, doggy. Nice doggy.
Petting angry dogs isn't the best idea, so it's a good thing that Lalo from Better Call Saul showed up to stop this kid from running away and startling the dog.
don't run.
What?
Walk away slowly.
So good advice. By the way, if you're wondering how the pit bull viewed this interaction, it went like this. Mutt, remember, children are delicious snacks. You should eat them.
Now I know.
And no one is half the battle.
G.I.Joe. Hey, Leatherneck, so yeah, it was nice of you to offer this girl some sunscreen.
Next time, use the sunscreen. Wear a hat and a shirt and look for some shade when it's really sunny.
Sunscreen stops sunburns is pretty obvious advice, though.
Hey, Stella, your friend's been out in the sun without protection.
Now, do you want to tell us what you were doing watching two underage girls sunbathe for several hours? Stopping natural selection. Okay, on today's episode, we learned to not get hit by a train.
Those gates are provided as a warning to let you know that it's not safe to cross.
Obvious advice for anyone who knows what a train is.
We could have been hurt. Now we know.
Though Charles Darwin's advice would probably be something like this.
If he dies, he dies.
Also, what the hell is wrong with Chris's face? She is a skater girl. Here, Gung Ho teaches a group of boys not to assume a girl can't skate because she's a girl.
Let her try. You might be surprised.
Is what we would say, but more objectively, he teaches them not to judge someone until you give them a chance.
Don't judge people till you give them a chance.
In general, it's decent advice, but in this context, it could have ended poorly. But Gung Ho, what if she sucks at skateboarding? Simple, Jimmy. You purge that filthy poser at all costs. A lot of nosebleeds in the 80s. If you have a nosebleed, you're supposed to pinch your nose and tilt your head downward.
Pinch your nose closed and lean forward. If it doesn't stop in 5 minutes, we'll pack your nose with gauze and pinch it closed for 10 more minutes. If it's still bleeding, then see a doctor.
Considering even some adults have been misinformed and do the opposite, we've got to give props to Footloose for some good advice. Still, this guy's got the nosebleed instructions down to a science, and given how this show came out in the 80s, we can only assume that this knowledge is from years of doing blow. Teamwork makes the dream work. Another piece of surprisingly good advice. Kids are emotional creatures, so blaming the goalie for any points the team scores is understandable, albeit unjustified.
Look, if you want to play your best, you got to play like a team.
Sometimes you just need a high-ranking military officer to tell you. Remember, yelling at Billy won't help. It's not his fault that he sucks so much. Worst siblings ever.
Anyone can have an accident, but lying makes it worse.
But Mom will be upset.
She'll be even more upset if you lie. And how would you feel if Billy got punished?
Fine. Actually, perfect.
Like Flint says here, it's always better to tell the truth, which I don't know about that, since it's sort of an absolute. The bigger problem here is these siblings suck. You're playing baseball in your front yard, and when you break the window, you straight up announce your plan to blame it on your baby brother in front of him.
Face up to what you've done. Don't take the easy way out.
It's less about the lying and more about the betrayal of your own blood. Make that bike sparkle. Okay, so yeah, wearing reflectors is good advice for riding a bike at night.
No wonder you don't have reflectors. They tell drivers where you are.
I see what you mean.
But these two also aren't wearing helmets, and they didn't look both ways passing through the intersection. So we'll call this one incomplete advice. The dangers of medicine. Okay, first of all, are we just not going to talk about the brother assuring his sister that his dad's medicine is, quote, real strong stuff?
It's real strong stuff.
That's a prescription for danger.
How does he know? Is he trying to get his sister hooked on pain pills? Speaking of strong stuff, this one's actually smart because it's something kids might not think about.
All paints, and especially spray paints, have poisonous gases in them.
Using spray paint without ventilation is dangerous. Yes, even for you, O.J. Simpson. Those paint fumes can really mess with your head if you don't have fresh air. So this is good advice, kids. If you kill too many brain cells, you'll end up like that idiot trying to jump the downed power line on his bike. Water conducts electricity.
At even the hint of a thunderstorm, get right out of the water.
This has to be one of the best of the bunch. It doubles as a practical lesson, don't swim in a storm, and a science lesson. Water conducts electricity. Because if you're in the water and lightning strikes, you're done for. It's unlikely, sure, but this is some good advice. Seriously, Deep Six, how long were you there for? He just rises up from the water like Apocalypse Now. Don't try to murder your friends on a boat. Once again, we have a questionable by omission situation.
A life jacket's good protection.
Yeah, like seatbelts in a car.
Wearing a life jacket on a boat is a crucial idea, but are we just gonna ignore how this kid maliciously knocked his friend out of the boat?
Oh, I don't need one. Prepare to come about. Ah!
Maybe we should have a PSA about not engaging in an attempted murder. That's called an umpire. And on today's episode of Obvious Advice, we have a group of kids learning that you need an umpire to play baseball to keep from fighting.
Well, fighting won't stop it. When people disagree, sometimes they need someone who's not involved to settle things.
Because as we all know, umpires are treated very fairly by those rooting for both teams, regardless of who wins or loses.
Now we know.
Who designed this house?
If there's a real fire in your house, your first job is to escape immediately. Fire sprints quickly.
Okay, you know what? We were gonna say this one was just obvious because, of course, you don't waste any time inside a burning house. Get out of there, then call 911. But we're gonna call this bad advice for the simple fact that this house has curtains hanging over the stove. And it's an open flame stove, too. It's as if they wanted a house fire. Or maybe they did. New PSA, don't burn down your house for insurance money. Keep calm. Trust the buff army guy. This one is in a similar vein to the drowning kid from earlier.
Stay calm, think. Where did you see him last? Go back there. If he doesn't come back, ask a policeman for help.
Yes, staying calm in stressful situations will definitely help you solve them, but do you actually expect a little kid to be calm when they can't find the people they came with? Bad advice for the sole reason that he was calmed down by the literal first stranger who approached him. He got lucky that the stranger was a good guy and not the creepy green trenchcoat dude from earlier. Why you shouldn't pull fire alarms.
False alarms are no joke. They keep firefighters away from the real action.
Good advice once again here. I've personally never seen a fire alarm outside on the streets, but Pyro from Team Fortress 2 telling kids why they shouldn't press the big shiny button rather than just because I said so is always a good idea. How low can you go? We'll take Barbecue's word on staying close to the ground in a fire and not opening a door if the knob is hot.
You might let in poisonous gases. Stuff something under the door. And stay low. That way you avoid the heat and gases that rise upward.
We aren't surprised that this checks out as good advice since the guy is a fire expert. Heck, he even knew exactly when to come to the kid's house and rescue them from the fire, which makes us wonder if he started the fire just so he could save them for publicity. This kinda got dark fast. Heels overhead. This one, oh boy.
Never lift the head of a person who's fainted.
Not only does Airtight neglect to explain what precisely is dangerous about lifting an unconscious person's head, but he gives the indication that an elevated foot and a wet cloth is all you need to solve the problem, which is bad advice. Not because of misinformation, but because there's definitely a lot of info missing here. Knowing is half the battle, so maybe, I don't know, teach us. Apples to chocolates. Did you know that apples are healthier for you than candy? Yes? You did? Well, okay then. We'll call this one obvious and move on.
Yeah, you never catch an NBA player eating a candy bar for a game.
Shouldn't we pay for these? It's okay, kids. I already shot the clerk. Let's empty the register. The motorbike in the room.
These ATVs have as much power as a real motorcycle. You gotta respect them.
And wear helmets for protection.
Don't get me wrong, wearing a helmet when you ride a bike is crucial, so we'll call this one some pretty good advice. But isn't there a law against kids riding motorbikes? Don't you need a special license for these even as an adult? Also, by the way, this is instant karma.
Sure, got a helmet?
A helmet? What are you, some kind of wimp?
He insults the kid for suggesting a helmet and then immediately gives himself brain damage. Do I look like a sissy? We round out G.I. Joe with one more piece of good advice.
It's hard not to follow the crowd, but sometimes that path is just a dead end.
Just because other kids are engaging in vandalism doesn't mean you should go along with them.
What are you, a sissy?
And frankly, that is some weak vandalism. Writing your name is not just lame, it's gonna make it all the easier for the cops to catch you. Also, these two are the real sissies in this situation. They pulled the "I agreed with you all along" after participating in the vandalism. Shameless.
I knew I was right.
Okay, let's move on from real-world heroes like the Joes to some more supernatural ones. He-Man, Masters of the Universe. He-Man versus molestation.
Shyr and I want to talk to you about something that's very personal. Your body.
Remember, it's your body and no one should touch you in a way that you feel is wrong.
The opening of this one might be a little unintentionally ominous, but thankfully the rest of it is good advice.
It's hard for a young person to admit that he or she has been touched in a bad way.
If you've been touched that way, don't be ashamed. Tell someone you trust.
There's nothing like having kids' favorite cartoon characters encourage them to be open with trusted adults about their trauma. And it's comforting to know that Orko is always ready to beat the crap out of kid diddlers. We also think that a part 2 for this PSA is in order, titled, "If you see a pedophile, put them into a wood chipper." I mean, true. He-Man strikes again. This is some more good guidance for kids.
You found out there aren't any magic potions. And you know what? There aren't any magic drugs either.
That said, it's definitely showing that 90s cheesiness.
Anytime you take one from anybody but your parents or your doctor, you're taking a very big chance. You're gambling with your health, maybe even your life. Drugs don't make your problems go away. They just create more.
Still, if anything, these types of PSAs are probably more relevant than ever nowadays, unfortunately, due to all the fentanyl being put into other drugs. So, thanks, He-Man. A good series of advice, and it's gone. The opening shot of this PSA by Tila made us worried she was about to jump, but don't worry. She was just encouraging her audience that when they're sad, they should just try singing, humming, or smiling.
You'll feel a lot better. Honestly, try it and see. And I'll be seeing you very soon.
We're gonna say bad advice because it's essentially, oh, you're feeling sad and depressed? Have you tried smiling more? You want a medal, Man-at-Arms? This one's not even teaching a lesson to the kids or anything, it's just talking about how people who are the first to explore in their various fields are brave.
There have been brave men and heroic women ready and eager to be the first to face the unknown, to challenge its dangers so that others might follow without fear. It is to these unsung heroes that we owe so much.
But we'll say it's good guidance. Tila strikes again. Okay, they aren't as hilariously out there as the G.I. Joe ones, but most of these He-Man ones are pretty obvious.
Don't see it or touch it, but you can feel it. It's called love.
Like, hey kids, did you know you can love people? Obvious advice. Tila's love speech sounds like it comes from a chick at Coachella who sells you mushrooms. Very insightful stuff. Sir, this is a show for 7-year-olds. The idea of not abusing wealth or power is actually very important, but this is a kid's show.
There are times when everybody dreams of becoming very rich or powerful, but what they don't think about are the problems and responsibilities that go with it.
Confusing is the only ranking we can give this one, just for how out of place it feels.
He knew that it's just as important to know when not to use force as it is to know when to use it.
Maybe show this to politicians or something. Or maybe next week He-Man can tell little Billy how to resolve the conflicts in the Middle East. Ram Man's miserable existence. Poor Ram Man. In one episode, he warns kids about his cartoonish violence. Ramming into folks looks fun, but it's actually painful.
I mean, you could get hurt badly. So listen to Rammy, play safely, and when you use your head, use it the way it was meant to be used, to think.
We have to call this one questionable in a very do as I say, not as I do sort of way. In a way, it might even make it more tempting. It's like if Tom and Jerry came up and said, hey kids, don't, I repeat, don't hit people with giant hammers, okay? Seriously though, is Rammy okay? Someone should check on him. While someone hopefully does a welfare check on him, we're moving on to everyone's favorite environmentalist, Captain Planet. And I'm just gonna say it, I hated this show when I was a kid. I thought it was super lame. This power isn't yours. Apparently the power of buying things isn't yours.
So think before you buy. Is this worth an animal's life?
This PSA encourages you to think before you buy. No, not to manage your money better or anything like that, but because the things you buy are made from stuff in nature. And I'm gonna level with you, this Captain Planet guy is pretty annoying. Like, we get it, some products shouldn't be as wasteful. Now get in your Prius and get away from me. Back to basics.
Don't you know that not littering is one of the easiest ways to help save the planet? Who are you?
There's no shortage of encouragement to recycle in this show. The environmentalist messages have all the subtlety of a tiger on cocaine.
Be a planeteer. Recycle.
Recycle. Don't use animal-based products. Save the turtles. We get it.
How dare you?
I'm gonna level with you, Captain Planet. I'm not monitoring my air conditioner usage in the summer because I'm not a communist.
It gives me a chill.
Don't reproduce too much.
Ever were to get married?
What?
How many kids would you want to have?
Why?
Because I definitely don't want more than 2.
There's not really any other way to classify this one other than propaganda.
The more people there are, the more pressure we put on our planet. So take it easy on our Earth and conserve what you can.
On one hand, overpopulation is certainly something that's up for debate, but what the hell kind of weird messaging is this in a kids show?
I just don't get why people bring kids into the world when they can't provide for them.
Is Captain Planet Bill Gates? Is he gonna start telling us to eat bug paste next instead of real meat? Honestly, I'm gonna level with you. I'm putting my tinfoil hat on. I do not trust this Captain Planet guy. Captain Inclusive Planet.
Sometimes people hate or fear others who are different than they are. But that's wrong.
Okay, finally, something different. It might be basic, but reminding kids that you shouldn't hate others because of their culture, religion, race, etc. is good advice. It's so good, in fact, that we won't judge Captain Planet for being blue or wearing a Speedo. Okay, we won't judge him for being blue. AIDS.
You cannot catch AIDS from hugging, or playing, or eating in the same cafeteria with someone. Learn the facts about AIDS.
Look, I highly doubt that the average person watching Captain Planet needs to worry about AIDS. And it's good that you can't catch it through hugs. Still, we'd hope kids don't even have to worry about this one, though AIDS was all the rage in the 80s. AIDS 2 Electric Boogaloo. From the makers of AIDS, Captain Planet now presents AIDS 2. Okay, first of all, why do all these people know that this random guy has AIDS? It's nice that they supported him in the end, but what was everybody's deal before Captain Planet showed up?
Back off, Todd. Don't touch me.
I'm confused, but one thing is for certain. This goblin-looking dude in the trench coat has maybe the best line of any PSA in history.
Get him out of here! He's got AIDS!
Also, super specific reference. Trench coat guy reminds me of Koenma's assistant in Yu Yu Hakusho. Okay, if you're tired of seeing cartoon characters preach to you about recycling and AIDS, we've got you covered. Let's take a quick break to talk about the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Plumber calling the kettle black. Here, Mario encourages kids not to do drugs. No, let us rephrase that. More like he actually threatens kids to not do drugs.
And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
Yeah, Mario does not sugarcoat things. You're not just dying, you're going to hell. We gotta give Mario points for spirit, but we have to call this one questionable just for the execution.
Drugs can and will kill. Remember, don't be afraid to turn to your priest, your rabbi, your minister, your moms, your dads, your teachers, because drugs can kill.
It implies a single mistake is going to sentence children to hell before they die. And come on, play Super Mario Wonder and tell me with a straight face that this man isn't stoned out of his mind. A hot take from Mario.
Because if you accept stolen property, the law says you're just as guilty as the one who stole it.
I wasn't sure about the whole not ransacking my local supermarket thing, but now that Mario's told me not to steal, it seems so obvious. Stealing is bad, even if you're damaging or using stolen property.
So be smart. Say no to stealing.
You should do something fun like Mario and borrow all those shiny coins you see along the way. Let your parents know where you be. It's important for kids to always check in and make sure their parents know where they are.
If they need you, or if you don't come home on time, they have to know where to look.
This one seems pretty obvious now, especially with basically every kid having a cell phone, but at the time, this was some great advice. But I'm not sure if I should trust him or if it's the right thing to...
Believe me, it's the right way.
Oh, okay. Glad he cleared that up. Better call Mario.
Hoo-hoo! It's me, Mario!
Did you know that you have rights?
Just like grown-ups, you have the right to be treated fairly and to be safe from harm at school, on the bus, anywhere.
Like the right to say no to doing bad things, like kidnapping the princess. But regardless, calling this good advice is an understatement.
Know your rights and use them, please.
Just say no really is the core component of most PSAs. Grab your one-ups.
Do you know someone that owns a gun or a knife?
Okay, not sure how we went from say no to bad stuff to guns and knives can effing kill you, but here we are.
Remember, guns and knives can kill. I'm telling it to you.
I mean, it's definitely good advice, but the conviction Mario speaks with here makes us think he's warning us from experience. Game over.
Have you been fingerprinted yet? It's fun, and it's free.
And now he's telling us about how fun it is to get fingerprinted. So the police can track you down just in case you go missing. Yeah, okay, Fed. Mario's the only Italian from Brooklyn who's comfortable with law enforcement casually taking his fingerprints.
You know the police can't stop crime without your help.
Better advice, kids. Don't give anything to law enforcement without a warrant. Remember, you have rights. We will trust him here, though.
And if someone you don't know offers you a ride in a car or wants to give you money or candy or gifts, get away. Strangers can act friendly, but they may not be.
Mario may be a lot of things, but he's not a pervert. You can take his word of not getting into a car with strangers as good advice. We really hope this one isn't from experience, though. But Mario's not the only gaming icon you can count on for advice. Now we move on to Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Says. That's no good, unlike this PSA. Sonic's PSAs are among the most fondly remembered. With his too cool for school attitude and genuinely kind nature, you get the feeling that Sonic actually cares enough to help, and that kids will like him enough to listen.
There's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good.
This is by far the most iconic one. Remember, being touched by someone you like is only cool if it's consensual, and that's good advice. To dare or not to dare. Scratch and Grounder are having a race on a train track despite the ridiculous amount of wide open land around them that they could be using. And Sonic offers some good advice yet again here.
Play it safe. Use your head. Don't end up dead.
Not only informing us that racing on a train track is no good, but that he doesn't want his friends to get hit by a train by taking on a stupid dare. But I guess it's fine if his enemies do, though. Tails has AirPods in. He can't hear us. Tails, no! Man, Sonic is saving Tails' life a lot in these. In this one, Tails almost gets run over by a giant steamroller while he's got his headphone volume too loud.
Music's great, Tails, but you gotta be aware of your surroundings, too.
Huh? What'd you say?
Plus, it ruins your hearing if you play it too loud.
I don't know what headphones he's using that can tune out a freaking steamroller, but any advice that keeps you from getting hit by one is good advice in our book. Aged like fine wine. Good advice again? Man, Sonic is on a roll. This time, Tails gets conned into buying Robo Dude, a cleaning robot that costs just $9.98. And for just $90 extra, you'll even have all the parts to make it complete. With how many scammers there are today, it's good to remember Sonic's words of wisdom.
If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably false.
Too bad some people have trouble learning how to read.
Too bad some people have a problem learning how to read. If you know someone that has trouble reading, tell them to ask a teacher or get help at a local library.
Okay, good advice. Kids who struggle with reading should absolutely ask for help. But at the same time, the way Sonic says this almost makes him sound resentful. Also, side note, is anyone else surprised that Sonic, of all people, has the patience to sit down and read? He meant well, but...
Hey, it may not be perfect, but when you get right down to it, there's no place like home.
When Coconuts leaves Dr. Eggman, Sonic's encouragement that there's no place like home is, you know, this guy is a terrorist and a slave owner, right? Yeah, bad advice. And you were doing so well, too, Sonic. Passing the mic away. When Tails and Captain Rescue are lost in the woods, an elderly bear helps them out by advising that moss grows heaviest on the north side of trees. Rescue's conclusion from this is that oftentimes old people know the right way to go in life.
Right, Tails. Older people can be very wise, and they often know the right direction to take in life.
Listening to wisdom is always good, but it's good to remember that people are still flawed creatures, so we'll call this one questionable. The Earth's gonna go fast.
Every time you buy something with unnecessary packaging or order food in styrofoam takeout boxes, you're part of the problem.
Nothing like Sonic the Hedgehog reminding us that every time we buy plastic, we're part of the problem of waste and pollution.
But you can help. Be a smart shopper. Recycle. Fix things. Don't throw them away.
And you know what? We're gonna say that this is good advice. And it's good to be reminded that we should try to reuse stuff. And I'm willing to admit that because this time the advice doesn't come from weirdo Captain Planet. Sonic's back on track. In this one, Sonic encourages the audience to take their education seriously, comparing the mind to a muscle.
Reading and learning are like exercise for your head. If you don't put in the time, you end up with a feeble mind. It's not how big your brain is, it's what you do with it that counts.
Dude even pulls out the classic use it or lose it line. Good for you, Sonic. You're back in the good advice territory. Enjoy it while you can, Tails. Sonic's absolutely right to say that sleeping badly can ruin your whole day.
Like already? I don't feel so good.
Time for you to get some rest. Not getting enough sleep can ruin your whole day.
Not only is that great advice, it really never becomes irrelevant. Seriously, as an adult, I might even call this the best advice in the entire video. Good, healthy sleep is so important. Was this one a commission? Another piece of good advice. Remember kids, don't climb into a laundry dryer.
Believe it or not, every year some ignorant kid takes a ride in a clothes dryer just like this one and ends up getting hurt.
Not only would the fans, heat, and motion probably kill you, but I'm not sure you'd be able to do that. It almost seems like the kind of thing you wouldn't even think of if Sonic didn't put the idea in your head, but then again, kids are weird creatures. Once again, Sonic is based. Don't be a fool, smoking isn't cool. And who knows about cool better than Sonic?
So don't be a fool. Smoking isn't cool.
This is good advice, and it could even use a reboot now that vaping is such a thing. Like, don't be a jerk, vaping doesn't work. I expect 50% royalties if you use that, Sonic. What kind of court is this? Okay, we finally reached Sonic's first confusing piece of advice. Why is Tails, who is 4 years old in this cartoon, being tried in court for breaking a no flying sign?
No flying for a whole month.
Look at the bright side, Tails. It could have been worse.
It's like, what laws can a kid even break, man? And the penalty is don't fly for a month?
The laws are there for a reason. You may not agree with them, but you gotta obey them. You don't ever want to end up in court.
If this was post 9/11, Tails would be in Gitmo for 20 years. Take care of yourself. Once more, we have a piece of obvious yet sound advice.
Get a cold, take care of yourself. If it gets worse, see a doctor.
Sonic reveals that when you're sick, you should, wait for it, take care of yourself. Mind blown. Oh, poor Coconuts. It looks like Coconuts decided not to run away from Eggman after all. In this PSA, Sonic encourages him to not spend all his money on candy and toys. You know, what literally any child would do.
Hold it, Coconuts. Why waste your hard-earned cash on this junk? If you save it, why you could buy something really cool.
Instead, he decides to buy a toilet plunger to make Robotnik proud. That's some questionable advice. It's definitely good to teach kids money management, but you can't expect kids to choose a cleaning supply over toys. Spend some, save some, that's the way to go. How is that his fault? Play safe and you'll have fun. Alright, sure. Watch out for little kids? Totally. But how was this series of accidents that poor hippo's fault? He's not the one who decided to design the slide like that, and to put it in front of the seesaw, no less.
You could get hurt taking dumb chances at the playground. Look before you leap, and watch out for little kids. Play safe, and you'll have fun.
Bad advice for the simple reason that it should be directed at the people who designed that slide. And honestly, maybe tell Tails not to stand right at the edge of the slide nonchalantly. Say no to gangs. It's definitely good advice to not join gangs, but the way Sonic handles this situation is a little questionable.
Or else what?
Well, I don't know.
These dumbbots don't know much.
If you ask the average criminal, or what, we're pretty sure they'll show you that or what real quick.
Stay in school and stay out of gangs.
Kids, just stay away at all costs. Okay, that's Whiplash. What better way to start a PSA on the dangers of guns than to have Sonic shoot an entire building down?
Nice shooting, Sonic.
Cartoon characters never really get hurt by guns, but real people do. So never play with a real gun.
Still, it's good to clarify that cartoon characters are the only type who don't get hurt by guns. Obvious advice, sure, but he is right. Literal lifesaver. Swimming alone is not a good idea if you aren't an expert, so teaching kids about the importance of the buddy system is good advice. Not sure it'll be much help in a shark attack though.
Why they call it the buddy system. When you go swimming, take along your best bud. It can be a lifesaver for both of you.
That said, if the idea here is to get Sonic to swim with you, we have to downgrade this to bad advice, since Sonic infamously can't swim. Littering isn't cool. This one's actually pretty smart. Recycle on its own is obvious advice.
But don't trash the environment. Recycle your garbage and put it where it belongs.
But contrasting it to workers littering on a busy day is seriously good advice. No excuses, litter bugs. Either find a trash can or store it until you do. Don't let them cook. Sonic's a real one, even when his adversaries set their whole kitchen and shelves on fire. He's there in seconds to extinguish it and offers some good advice for kids to never use the stove without a responsible adult present.
You dumb know you should never cook without supervision. That goes for you too, pals.
At least nobody hung curtains over it this time. Wait, how did they get drunk? Shout out to our boy Sonic for reminding us about the dangers of alcohol.
Stay away from liquor, kids. Like all drugs, alcohol is dangerous, and you can get hooked. Just remember.
Staying away from it is good advice, but seriously, how do robots get drunk?
Bite my shiny metal ass.
Simple, but crucial. Teeth are meant to last a lifetime, but they won't unless you take care of them.
Brush and floss your teeth after every meal, and see your dentist regularly. Teeth are meant to last a lifetime, but they won't unless you take care of them.
The fear of losing teeth has been deeply rooted in me my whole life. Thanks, Sonic, for passing it to countless other people. That's good advice in its purest form. For our grand Sonic finale, Tails witnesses a double murder.
The street is no place to play, Sonic says.
You shouldn't play in the street. Good advice. But are we just gonna ignore Tails letting Scratch and Grounder get hit by a car?
Hey, I got it! Looks like these dumbbots were flat out wrong about going in the street.
And then Sonic just walks up like, oh, sucks to suck, LMAO. We were joking earlier when we said Sonic would be fine with his enemies being hit by a vehicle, but it turns out that sometimes jokes hint towards reality. Well, we're nearing the end, so to lighten the mood after that double vehicular homicide, here are a few miscellaneous PSAs to close us out. And we won't waste your time because all of these are good advice. Superman versus cigarettes.
Uh-oh, nicotine. I'd better move fast.
If Sonic didn't convince you that smoking is way past uncool yet, fret not. Superman's ready to beat the tar out of anyone who endorses smoking to kids. In these British PSAs, he fights against nicotine to keep kids from smoking, and I guess adults from getting them to smoke.
With my X-ray vision, I can see the harm cigarettes do inside people's bodies. That's why I never say yes to a cigarette.
Either way, can we talk about how weirdly incredible the animation is here? Spider-Man, don't hide abuse. In one of several educational Spider-Man PSAs, Spidey rescues a little girl from her abusive father. Well, not exactly. More accurately, he gives her friends, also children, the number for the child abuse hotline, which one of them calls.
The most important thing is to help Maria understand that there are adults who want to help her.
And it leads to a series of events where the little girl gets help from a trusted adult. Once again, Spider-Man has technically contributed to saving the day. Cinema etiquette with SpongeBob. During SpongeBob's 20th anniversary, he was gifted his very own theater etiquette video, where, ironically, he and Patrick are used as bad examples.
This means no gum chewing, no bouncing, no armrest hugging, no jellyfishing.
But as it usually goes with these things, poor Squidward is the one to get kicked out for finally losing his temper and shouting. And I mean, justice for Squidward. He was just trying to watch the movie.
Enjoy the movie, Patrick.
No talking.
Hey, old timer. Before he was bothering Peter at 3:30 in the morning...
Look, a wagon wheel! What the hell is your problem? I just smoked a whole bunch of crack!
Timer was always there to remind kids in the 70s and 80s about the important things in life.
From your head down to your feet, things like meat and eggs and fish you need to build up muscle tissue. Uh-oh!
From eating a balanced diet to being open to trying new foods to, most importantly, satisfying your primal hankering for a hunk of cheese. This guy really had a whole minute-long PSA just to tell kids about how good cheese is. And for that, we will forever hold him in high regard.